It is great to welcome today to our Book Talk segment the best-selling author of a book that did very well called The Orphan Train. She's got a new one out now, and this is very interesting historical fiction. It's called A Piece of the World. We're joined today by Christina Baker Kline. And Christina, good to have you with us. How are you today?
So lovely to be here. Thank you. Great.
Are you in New York or are you in Maine? I see you live in both places.
I do. I actually live just outside of New York in Montclair, New Jersey. I am here. I am on my way to Boston and Ohio in the next day. So I'm briefly home, which is lovely.
Good. Okay. I lived in Long Island, but I lived in Englewood Cliffs briefly in New Jersey, so not too far away from where you are. So
great.
But it's good to have you with us today. First of all, congratulations on the book. I guess that was 2013, right? Orphan Train. That did incredibly well. Did that kind of surpass even what you hoped?
It surprised everyone. It was totally out of the blue. It was a sleeper hit. I think that doesn't happen all that often. That you have a book like that kind of comes out slowly and builds over time, and it just grew and grew. It was kind of crazy. My publisher, I think, was as surprised as I was.
Yeah, I guess you always hope a book's going to be successful, but you're never quite sure, right, until it gets out there.
Yeah, I mean, I have a long career. As a quote-unquote mid-list author, I think my next most successful book sold about 30,000 copies, or maybe 35,000, which seemed like a tremendous achievement to me, and I think we were all kind of fairly happy with that. So to have a book like this that has sold, 3.5 million copies, it's just a completely different experience, and I don't think anything prepares you for it. And, maybe big blockbuster writers are used to that, but I certainly wasn't, and it was all a big surprise.
Well, this one hopefully will do as well or better, and this was kind of an interesting premise to it. Now, I don't know a lot about art. I know a little bit growing up in New York. We went to the museums as part of school and all that, but this is kind of based on a painting, isn't it?
Yeah, so Christina's World, for those of you who are listening, who don't know it, is a painting that hangs at the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. You, in fact, may have seen it as a child.
Oh, I have, yeah.
It was bought by the Museum of Modern Art in 1948, and they paid $1,800 for it. It's now priceless, so it doesn't even travel because it's worth so much money. And it is the picture it's the painting of a woman in a pink dress sitting in a field. There's something a little bit strange about her. She's a slim young woman with her back to the viewer, the viewer, I suppose. And then she's in this yellow field of grass, and at the top of the field is a gray house that looks very forbidding. And in fact, one interviewer recently said that it reminded him of the house in the movie Psycho, because it's strange and you can't quite tell what's going on behind the windows. But it does a little bit. That's a little bit what it looks like. It's a very odd house and kind of a strange painting in some ways.
You don't see Anthony Perkins in the painting, do you?
Well, he might be in the window.
What kind of gave you the idea to write a story about this? Did you just see the painting and it kind of struck you, or what was the process?
I actually grew up knowing about this painting, as it sounds like you might have as well. When I was 6 years old, my family moved to Maine from the South, and my parents were young professors, and they were really interested in art and culture. So we traveled around, and we went to E.B. White's house, and we went to the field where Christina had sat in that painting, and we had a picnic, probably, no doubt, trespassing, but we did it. And, that was my first sort of, I guess, vision of it. I had the poster like many children do. I had the poster as a child. And my name is Christina, and my mother and grandmother are also named Christina. And, in fact, my grandmother, Christina, grew up at the same time period, in a rural farmhouse, just like Christina Olsen, with no heat or running water or other amenities. And she took care of the family in the same way, and she had a debilitating illness. So there were all these ways that painting resonated for me, and that the woman in the painting was actually, I felt quite a connection with.
And Andrew Wyeth, you mentioned he's the artist of it. I guess this is actually his 100th, would have been his 100th birthday, right, this year?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this was not planned. It sounds very calculated, but it wasn't that I would, have the book come out at the centennial celebration of his birth. He was born in, as you can guess, 1917. But it's a lovely coincidence because I'm doing a lot of events at museums, and some of which are the Wyeth Museum. So I'm doing the one in, the Brandywine, which is in Chadsport, Pennsylvania, and I'm doing the one in Maine, which is part of the Farnsworth, and then there's another Wyeth Museum in Greenville, South Carolina, of all places.
Now, when you decided to write a story about this. This is, again, a historical fiction, right? So you make up a bit of a story behind the painting, right?
Yeah, I mean, historical fiction, I guess it fits in that category. I researched this story a lot, and I tried to adhere to the facts as much as I could. So I tell the story of the woman in the painting, and obviously it's my imagination because I am not her, and I write from her perspective.
Right.
But the things that happened to her mostly are exactly what happened in real life.
Yeah.
So I didn't make up really any events. I mean, they're all things that actually were part of her story. The more I read about her, and particularly about Andrew Wyeth, the more I realized that, a lot of people don't know this stuff, and they're reading my book, and they're getting this story about someone who really lived, and also her relatives, a number of whom are still alive. Andrew Wyeth's relatives are also still alive, so his widow and his children, for example. So I wanted to try to make sure, if I could, to be accurate. And I was. But I took a few liberties, but they're small. Most of the story is true.
And he was, just kind of reading the notes a little bit, he was successful young as an artist, which that's kind of unusual. Usually after you die as an artist is when you became famous, right? For the most part.
And, it actually was a problem. It sort of boomeranged on him. He was very young. He was very famous when he was very young. At the age of like 19 or 20, he had won some international huge award, and he was on the cover of a big art magazine, and then his reputation grew and grew, and he became more and more famous. But by the late 60s, he had fallen out of favor. Pop art and minimalism and abstract art was huge, and I think he was dismissed as a conservative, even reactionary painter who really only did realism. And that's not accurate exactly. In fact, now Wyeth's reputation is being reclaimed. Art curators and historians are viewing him really differently, and I think that's wonderful. I think he will end up being viewed as one of the greatest American painters.
Well, would this, I guess, be his most famous work? Were there any others that kind of came close?
Yeah, there were others that came close, and in fact, he sort of, part of the damage to his reputation was that later on, quite a bit later, he painted pictures of a woman named Helga, and those are very famous, but they were sort of infamous more than anything because he kept it a secret that he was painting her, even from his wife, and she was... It was pretty upsetting to her to find out that for 3 years he had been painting this young, beautiful woman in his studio without anyone knowing about it. So I think it was sort of a scandal when that happened, and I think it damaged him for a while.
I guess it's not a good idea not to let the wife in on that, right?
Yeah, that was bad. I mean, she never condemned him publicly, but I think people felt that she had been humiliated, and they didn't like that.
Well, it's a fascinating story based on one of the most famous paintings, Christina's World, and the name of the book is A Piece of the World. We were talking with Christina Baker Kline today. And Christina, give out your website if you would. People get more information about the book.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my name, ChristinaBakerKline.com, and it's Kline.
Great. Christina, pleasure talking to you. Wish we had more time, but when the next book comes out, love to have you back on. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Lovely to talk to you. Bye-bye.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.
If you'd like to order the book we're talking about, please go to DougMilesMedia.com and enter the author's name in the Amazon search box. Thank you for listening. Please come back soon for more conversations here at DougMilesMedia.com. This has been a presentation of Doug Miles Media, all rights reserved. You can listen to or download previous programs at iTunes, Stitcher.com, or DougMilesMedia.